Today we will deal with housing finance. Now the term housing finance or home loan means finance for buying or modifying a property. The different housing loan products could be classified as home loans, home extension loans, home improvement loans. Now, moving on to the sources of funds. Following are the major sources of housing finance. Number 1, the central government or budgetary allocation. The central government introduces various social housing schemes and formulates the housing policies from time to time and provides financial assistance in the form of subsidies and loans to the state government and union territories. The central government is also responsible for formulating of housing policy and its effective implementation, particularly in the areas of social housing schemes for the poor, weaker sections and low-income groups. Second, institutional sources or formal housing finance system. Housing industry consists of formal, that is organized, and informal, that is unorganized sector. Organized sector is operated by the apex body, that is the National Housing Bank (NHB), a subsidiary of RBI. The major financial institutions which finance housing sector may be classified into two broad groups, depending upon whether housing finance is their primary function or their secondary function. Now, first we deal with the primary function. Specialized housing finance institutions have been set up with the sole purpose of financing house construction or purchase activities. Example, the Housing and Urban Development Corporation, that is HUDCO, the Housing Development and Finance Corporation Limited, that is HDFC, the National Housing Bank, that is NHB. Next we deal with the secondary function. Non-specialized housing finance institutions provide housing finance like commercial banks. The Reserve Bank of India's initial efforts to encourage commercial banks in housing finance came in the form of direct credit. Bank lending under housing comprises three components. Number 1, direct lending, which entails banks themselves extending housing finance loan. Second, indirect lending, where banks lend to approved housing finance companies. And investment in mortgage-backed securities, underlying loans securitized by housing finance companies. Other than the above institutions, housing cooperatives also play a major role in providing finance to housing. Next, informal housing finance system. In addition, there is a large informal sector which meets over 2/3 of the housing finance in the country. The main sources of housing finance are available from money lender, family members, relatives, friends, employers, business associates, own savings, money from sale property, etc. Such informal arrangements particularly help low-income group individuals to obtain short-term, small amount loans for various purposes. Now we will deal with the major issue of housing finance lending. Number 1, non-availability of funds. Housing finance is a long-term investment which requires a great amount of funds. One of the main problems of housing finance sector of India is non-availability of long-term capital for investment. Second, high stamp duty. Nowadays, the charges of transferring land, stamp duty on house purchase, and registration charges are very high. This is also one of the major reasons of increasing the cost of property. Then it becomes unaffordable to the people, especially the economically weaker sections and the low-income groups. Third, higher cost of acquisition of land. The availability of land, adequate quantity, at the right place and at an affordable price by the individual is more important. For housing finance sector, the inelastic supply of suitable land results in a spurious increase in the cost of real estate. Next, cutthroat competition among housing finance companies. Housing loan is considered as a safe investment by financial institutions, and every housing finance company wants to capture more and more share of the sector. The competition positively affects the housing finance sector up to a reasonable level. But after that, when leaders have to provide loans below their cost of funds, it converts into a threat for the entire housing finance industry. Next, unclear property rights. unclear property rights for rural and urban land are also a major problem for the housing finance sector in India. The unclear property titles severely reduce the housing finance market because housing finance companies do not like to play game after financing such type of disputed properties. Next, hidden costs and terms and conditions of housing finance. Housing loans include processing fees and file charges, heavy penalty in any delay in payment of loan installment, penalty on premature payment of loan, etc. Shortage of professional builders and developers. In India, the professional developers and builders are not very much popular. Unauthorized and small builders have ruined the housing market by adopting several types of malpractices. Housing finance customers feel the shortage of genuine and professional builders on which they can depend upon. Next, technical paper formalities. The approval of a housing loan depends upon the proper compliance of all technical paper formalities such as income proof to prove the genuineness of the property purchased, approval of local development authority, mortgage, documentation, etc. Housing finance agencies remain strict on compliance of these formalities. This is one of the prime reasons due to which a general person avoids to arrange housing finance through authorized housing finance agencies. Next, fluctuating home loan interest rates. Change in home loan interest rates also creates confusion in the minds of the prospective home loan customer. Home loan interest rates offered by different housing finance agencies vary from customer to customer and company to company. Customers always try to search the most attractive housing finance sector to avail, but it proves a tiresome and depressive job. Now we will discuss the housing finance institutions of India. The National Housing Bank, that is NHB, was set up in July 1988 under the Act of Parliament and is wholly owned by RBI, that is the Reserve Bank of India. NHB was promoted to function as an apex institution in the housing sector. It includes scheduled state cooperative banks. These banks are connected with the semi-urban and rural areas. It provides housing loans either directly or through district central cooperative banks, primary agricultural credit societies. A number of institutions exist in the housing finance market. A brief account of the more dominant of them are as follows. Number 1. The National Commercial Bank. The National Housing Bank was set up in July 1998 under the Act of Parliament and is wholly owned by RBI. NHB was promoted to function as an apex institution in the housing sector. Second, scheduled commercial banks. These banks have floated housing finance arms to avail the NHB's refinance facilities and tax conversions available to housing finance companies. Both public and private sector, as well as the foreign banks, large network and access to low-cost retail deposits have helped them to offer home loan products at comparative rates. Next, scheduled cooperative banks. It includes scheduled state cooperative banks, scheduled district cooperative banks, and scheduled urban cooperative banks. These banks are connected with the same urban and rural areas, provides housing loans either directly or through district central cooperative banks, primary/agricultural credit societies. Fourth, regional rural banks. It provides housing finance in rural areas and are refinanced by NHB. Fifth, agriculture and rural development banks, that is ARDBs. Keeping in view the housing shortage in rural areas, a few state governments permitted them to lend for housing. The NHB has formulated a scheme to subscribe to special rural housing debentures floated by the ARDBs. Housing finance companies. Housing finance company is a company which mainly carries on the business of housing finance companies. 7. The National Cooperative Housing Federation of India, NHCF. It is an apex organization for coordinating, guiding and promoting cooperative housing activities in the country.